What's going on, metalheads? You're listening to another episode of Metal Massacre. As always, I'm the weirdo with the beardo sitting here with the czar of Nar himself, Dustin Peters. How you doing, bud? How's life? Popping. We're popping.
Well, it's Super Bowl Sunday as far as recording day goes. It'll be after for you guys. And honestly, there's a juxtaposition of people like sports, but I think like a lot of metalheads. I was wondering if I even wanted to bring it up just because it was like, you don't care about football, for example.
I used to play it, so that was about as much as I care about it.
Right. And again, it's after the fact. So like when this comes out on Wednesday or whatever, the game will already be decided, and we'll all have to hail to the Chiefs because I'm sure that they're going to fucking it. So be it. But I am enjoying got my little long neck, and we're just gonna go in with an open mind, okay? I'm not a hater.
Yeah,
but I'm a bit of a hater. So regardless,
it's a busy time in Omaha, though. Everyone will be out at the bars and restaurants and sports bars just watching football. So,
and we're in Chiefs Nation area.
Pretty much.
Bandwagoners aside, I mean KC is the closest town. So hey,
right.
Assuming they won, good for all of you, and happy to have you. Welcome everybody, though. I was going to open the beer before we started, but here we are. Happy Sunday or whatever day you're listening to this. First of all, I'm doing pretty well, and I'm excited to kind of dig into this one a little bit before we start over, because I'm sure as you clicked on it, we had Cam Pipes from 3 Inches of Blood come on our show, which was awesome that he was willing to do that. Busy guy. It was one of those people that we really had to cut a tight 30 with him. So we got him to the next show. Mm-hmm. A lot of them do presser runs in order, but something we wanted to do today, we wanted to revisit a topic almost, because if you guys remember, I don't remember exactly how far back it was, but we did
second season. Yeah.
It was season 2. We did like the best video game soundtracks. They're like metal. Yeah. But we came up with the caveat where we were like, hey, I want this to be like original music, like Mega Man or something that has some awesome metal soundtracks, Guilty Gear. Mm-hmm. So we didn't pick your Tony Hawk, but you see where I'm going with this.
But today
is finally the day that we're, instead of making like a best of list, we're just going to talk about some of the best overall places that you didn't expect to find metal music. But specifically because we did the video game and movie soundtracks a while ago, we thought it'd be like, okay, now let's use licensed music. Let's actually talk about maybe some of the best soundtracks and the ones that really highlighted metal. And because if you didn't know, 3 Inches of Blood was highlighted in Tony Hawk's Underground 2. Deadly Sinners was in there. And what was the other? They had one of the other major tracks was in Skate. Skate 3.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's where I remember like hearing them from, because when we did the interview, we were like, and from Tony Hawk, I was like, I think that was Skate, but I'm not.
You're like, was it Skate or was it Tony Hawk? I don't remember at this point.
I'm not going to correct him on the fly and make him look like an idiot. But I was also could have been wrong. We were both right. I'm trying to I remember if it was which song of theirs, but regardless, I'm a big video game dork, like you all know, and so I have a bunch of some of my favorite soundtracks to games that are really built into my head, and I'm sure some of you already thought of some. So again, this would be a great one if you guys want to comment or leave stuff below. Things we forgot, things the reason why you like certain ones or didn't, wish you would have had more of, so on and so on. This would be a great one to drop some lines for us. What game was it, bro? Like,
it had to be a Skate. It had to be like Skate 2.
Battles Brotherhood. That one.
That one. Yeah. You never forget Cam's voice. He's got a very, very unique falsetto. And honestly, falsetto is something that doesn't happen a lot in metal. So I think it's fun when it's pulled off correctly, and they definitely do it justice. So
yeah, that old school style. There's a lot of like, you can think of like the Iron Maiden stuff almost. Yeah, that was way up there. King Diamond, Overkill, who we got lucky to play with. They all have that like that crazy.
It's almost like hair metal voice, but with heavier music. You know what I mean? I was just rocking out to. Have you ever seen the movie The Rocker with Rainn Wilson?
No.
Oh, bro, you would love this. I know you're not a huge movie guy, but I think you would love this movie. So the premise is he's an 80s hair metal drummer, and his band kicks him out right before they get big, and they just boot him out of the band.
Oh,
I think we watched it at like my parents' house or something back in the day.
Dude, I've watched this, but like again, I basically haven't.
They made a whole fake band, like 2 fake bands for this movie, and they actually released a soundtrack. And I was jamming to that, and I always make fun of this one line he does in the beginning of the song. He's like, "Oh, look at you, Cleveland. Like, it's just such a hair metal thing to do, but it really rings true to like how those bands really were. And I'm a huge fan of like video game soundtracks, but I'm also a huge fan of when they make a fake band. Like, obviously, I love Metalocalypse. So if you can convince me that something is real, even though it isn't, I think that makes it so much more powerful in my eye. But
no, I totally agree.
Just a little shout out there to that. It's so fucking good. So if you haven't seen that movie yet, guys, go watch The Rocker, listen to the soundtrack, and it's got a lot of really good rock, but then like hair metal as well. And it kind of reminds me of like This Is Spinal Tap, how they made that whole band. It wasn't real, but it really kind of should be because it was good. I love that kind of stuff. But
right, I mean, like shit. Yeah, Wayne's World, a band with the girl in it. I mean, like, there's all sorts of like but then like some of the songs that they have to make are actually like not bad.
Yeah, you're like, why does this slap so hard?
Right, like, I mean, like, granted, it's just like, well, I guess you should be making music. I suppose you probably do, but like, it's like something like that. You could actually make a band out of it. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of fictional bands that I think are pretty fun. There's actually like more than you'd think of. It was like that Adam Sandler movie where they made a band, or the movie with like, what was it? It was like The Rockstar or something like that. I can't remember what the main.
Marky Mark.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg was like pulled him out of the crowd
or whatever. Yeah, or Steel Tiger. I forget what it was, but yeah.
And then Steel Panther's a band now.
Yeah, it's like Steel Dragon. I don't remember what the Marky Mark one was, but that was pretty fun too.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad
fun
movie.
Little subgenre right there. It's just like fake real bands. Maybe that could be a future thing we talk about. But today, video game soundtracks. I know you got a lot to get through. I'm going to let you start it and kick it off. What's on the top of your mind here today?
So let's go over just like get a couple of things out of the way that like obviously then Tony Hawk. But then the question is like, which one was your favorite? And the thing that I really enjoyed about some of like the older sports games in specific, because I've usually always used licensed music, is the blend where they like really, it's generally always trying to be somewhat energetic. So it's got like attitude, hip hop or rap, along with like various forms of punk or metal. And like the Tony Hawk stuff usually would get a little bit more in the weeds, like counterculture kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where I would actually dig into some bands like fucking 3 Inches of Blood, which was sick. But if you play like Madden, I guess like honestly, like I think one of my favorite, and granted it's just because we're a little bit older and like it was just such a time, I think it was like Madden 02. Madden 02 was such a good list. I need to bring that wasn't even on my list of things I have there, but I do need to bring that up. But like, let's get out of the way the fact that Tony Hawk is super important for this. And of course, Guitar Hero. Like, we'd be doing that such a disservice to say that Guitar Hero wasn't, I would say, pivotal in a lot of people actually listening to metal or heavier music when they never would have. I think I was telling you, like when I was in high school or like when we were in middle school and high school, and like that was huge. I'd be playing on like soccer teams. We'd have like little banquets or just like everyone come hang out at whoever's house, and like a bunch of preppy people. Cause I've been like, I played all sorts of sports, but I've always been a metalhead. And then like all these like preppy kids that like they'd never listen to fucking like 3 Inches of Blood or anything like that.
Like Motorhead even.
They're like, dude, I fucking love Guitar Hero. And so they've been experienced into like all this heavier music that they might like, whether they actually think that they would have or not. I think that was pivotal. And it was just such a fun time. People really talked about bringing Guitar Hero back, but in this day and age, I just don't know how it would play. Like
I feel like they could. You just gotta keep adding to it. Like once Rock Band came out, it was like, okay, well that's kind of the Guitar Hero killer, because now you can do the full band instead of just guitar, which was way more like of a group thing. Like I remember being a kid and playing that with people, and like it was so much fun to sing, and you could see yourself singing kind of like. I really wish they would bring Guitar Hero back though. I think my favorite Guitar Hero was Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock.
Oh yeah, dude. That one I think had the biggest like best soundtrack to it.
And for a lot of people, like that was their first introduction to like Deathclock, Dragon Force, like even Lamb of God, like Laid to Rest. Like that was the first time that people even heard those songs. And then they go back and listen to everything else. And I would love to see the numbers of those bands before and after, like the 2 years before and the 2 years after they were on that video game, because it really did a lot for rock and for metal, I think, for the industry.
Oh, 100%, dude. And like I said, sometimes in the show we'll make a list or we'll give you our top 5 personally, or like here's something that we think is definitive. But we wanted to just today to highlight some of like our favorite ones, and then like also basically just we're gonna do the Immortal podcast and be like, remember when, dude?
Remember when?
Remember you on that show, man?
Yeah.
I do. But we tried not to do that with Cam.
Yeah, we didn't want to just do remember when the whole day with Cam, but
no,
you guys will hear that here later in the episode, of course.
I think my favorite rock band, so I think I have to agree with you that 3 was probably like the best soundtrack listing, but 2 for me was always just because I think that's Rock Band was something that like I didn't get right when the first one came out, but friends and then a girlfriend eventually that I had at that time, like in high school, always had Rock Bands. They had one.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure that was very influential, and obviously it sold gangbusters, but like 2 was when I think I got my first one, and I'm looking down like Ace of Spades is on there right at the top, and it's going alphabetical here, but that's where like Everlong by the Foo Fighters, Eye of the Tiger from Survivor, but it's also like where I first remember like really getting a chance, like that's honestly what made me a Dinosaur Jr. fan. They had Feel the Pain on there, and
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, Dinosaur Jr. is like one of my like, it's one of the only few like kind of sound or indie pop punk that's not really like my thing, but and Dinosaur Jr.'s got a very specific sound. I think. But I fucking love them. I actually like own a couple of their albums like on vinyl and on CD. That's like guilty pleasure again. Like I said before, makes it sound negative, but like when we're such heavy metal heads, like
it counts.
I'm listening to Dinosaur Jr.
It counts as a guilty pleasure when you're talking about
my feelings today.
Yeah.
But
no, I totally agree. I think there's a lot of video games that introduced people to music, and Guitar Hero is definitely up there. It's the top 1 or 2 that did that because you were interacting with the song. I know so many people that were like bragging about how good they were at Guitar Hero. Anastasia's got a buddy who can do Through the Fire and the Flames on like expert mode with his eyes closed and an arm tied behind his back and underwater with a dog licking him. It's like, I don't know how people do this shit, but it burns those songs into your brain is what I think it really did, is because you're remembering the pattern of what you're having to play. So it's almost like you're gaining a new appreciation for the music as well. Because it's one thing just to listen to music. It's another thing to try to play it.
Oh, dude, 1,000%. And like, I remember like anybody that's probably heard someone like, oh, dude, I can actually play guitar, so I can't play Guitar Hero. I'm not good at it. It sucks.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that as well. It's like one or the other. You can't do both.
And you are tying, like, you're getting kind of tongue-tied. I'm sure there's crossing some wires where you're like,
sure.
Well, I would normally want to fucking move up and down the fretboard, but now all I'm doing is just doing this with my left hand and then just going click, 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 click. Like,
right.
But I mean, like, at the same time, shit, it's a skill. I think that, like, Rock Band, though, dude, if you can play the drums on the Rock Band, like you can actually probably start playing drums. Like to be honest, like
I mean that's probably the most realistic that Rock Band took it was the drums, because it was pretty much just a digital drum kit, And I'm sure there are people who have taken their Rock Band drum kits and hooked them up and made them real drum sets. Like I'm sure that exists somewhere.
It's an e-kit basically, and like I know people that can play that are perfectly good drummers that use e-kits like exclusively almost.
It'd be really cool if you could set up an e-kit to Rock Band. I don't know if that's possible.
I bet you in some sort of capacity that it actually is. Like it
may not register every single part of the e-kit, but I'm sure it has the basics, snare, tom, hi-hat, all that, bass kick. That'd be really fun to kind of see. But yeah, dude, Rock Band, Garage Band, Rock Band, Guitar Hero. I feel like those were kind of the big pivotal, like, let's start making music a big thing in video games. And I mean, obviously Tony Hawk was always there, but I mean, fuck, I remember playing like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 in that cul-de-sac level and just like riding around nonstop listening to CKY as many times as I could.
Just to hear it, dude.
96 Quite Bitter Beings was like, that was the first song a lot of people heard from CKY. And a lot of people didn't know who CKY was until that point, because they were such an underground indie thing with like the Can't Kill Yourself videos and all that shit. Mm-hmm. So like,
not obviously the Bam Margera, but like still, dude, he was in number 2 and not even the first underground one as well, or any of the original. Was he in?
I think he was in like some 3? Of the earlier ones, like 3 or 4. Like they added him in those, but then he really took off in Thug 2. Like that was where I think he kind of shined as a main character of the game. And honestly, Thug 2, I think, has the best soundtrack out of all of them. It's got punk, metal, rock, and a lot of hip hop. So you get that different feel. You know what I mean? You're not stuck in one genre the whole time. And just looking through like the list, like, I mean, Disturbed, Frank Sinatra, Johnny Cash, The Doors, Ministry. Yeah. I mean, they kind of had a little bit of everything on the rock side. Then you got like A$AP Rocky and the DOC and hip hop, like the Violent Femmes. Like there was just so much there. And again, it was one of those games where I feel like I just sat there and listened to the music. Like I would just put it on my TV and be sitting in fucking New Orleans in the game or Barcelona or something. And it just worked so well. Like Fall Back Down by Rancid was such a classic on that game.
Dude, yes.
Los Angeles. Like I think my favorite though was I Love Living in the City. Because there's one line
living in the city
and the air smells shitty. And I was like, fuck yeah, bro. Like
everything's green.
Right. I fucking love and
was that band Fear.
The first time I ever heard Pain by Jimmy Eat World was also Thug 2.
Wow.
And that's been one of my favorite bands ever since that game. So, I mean, we really have to tip our hats to these kind of games for getting us into the music we're into now, because I'm sure we would have found it eventually, but finding it at that young, impressionable age when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, I mean, dude, nothing could replace that for us. Like, and then that's where we heard Mike V and the Rats, which a lot of people didn't know that Mike V had a band at all, and they did never give up on the Thug 2 soundtrack. And I was just like, dude, more respect for that dude now.
I was a big fan. I think my favorite Tony Hawk game, period, and that also includes the soundtrack, is the first Underground. Actually, is my I like Thug 2, but it was more Thug 2 is more like once you already had. Now you're like going on that like world tour to like this
the world destruction tour,
and it was like the King of the Road style, which is starting to get big around there as well. And like but the first one was like, you're coming up and you're just some no-name skater in New Jersey, and then like you meet Mike V, and then like now all of a sudden you're like, that guy can do a backflip McTwist 360 nose grind. That's crazy. We should sponsor him.
Right.
And for some reason, Stacey Peralta lived in your town. Didn't make sense, but it doesn't fucking matter. And like, but that game was like, I mean, I'll still pick it up and just play it just to play it. But yeah, same thing. Like it just did such a good blend, and the track listing was so big. I mean, like I'm looking at it's like 78 songs.
Yeah.
There was the fucking song that I know you love, Sailor Man, by the but it was like the cover of it, but like that Scottish Newfoundland or Nova Scotia band, the Real Mackenzies.
Okay.
They did that song, but it was like during Bam Margera's skate video. That was like the only time you could see it there. But talking about some of like the, and again, Thug 2 had 3 inches of blood to bring up again, just so we can do the due diligence, which was awesome. But like, there's a punk band, GBH, that my dad actually got to play with in this band here. They played like Crush 'Em. That was like that was great punk. Mike V and the Rats, like These Are the Days. That was on like the first one.
These are the days. Fucking got crushed so hard, dude. I remember just skating around to that. And I always try to figure out, like, can I just put like 3 songs on and that's it? Like, I'll go in and like try to do it.
Usually this is like, if I'm going to the gym and like I don't have to play anything in specific, like I'll just throw on the Tony Hawk Underground 1 soundtrack, just full shuffle and let it fly and just like go after it. Cause you're always going to get some pump up music, and you might have to, there's a couple of them that are like the ones after you beat the game, you can get Gene Simmons as a character. So there's like 3 fucking Kiss songs in this, and all the live versions. Lick it up. Like I'm good. I'm good on that.
The Kiss stage or whatever.
Lick it up. I'm like, I gotta get a life,
God
dude.
Damn it.
Like, I can't be this guy. Like, but I mean, I think No Effects, Rise Against. It was like one of the first times I really got into them. Even though they were like much older than that, and they were around when we were in middle school. Like I just remember starting to like actually listening to them because of that. And bands that like I haven't heard of. See, like the other thing I think is the most important side of the coin is, besides inviting us or people that don't generally listen to that style of music into it because Tony Hawk's a fun game or whatever, or a rock band, like it's something that like there are so many bands here that like, oh fuck, I forgot about them, and like this is like one of the only, this was like their claim to fame, where like there's a band called Camaro Smith that has that song It's All Right, and like it's a super good track. It's one of my favorite songs in the game, and it's perfect to skate to, but I don't know anything else they've done, and that's on me probably, but like I again, or like that song Mississippi King, that's by a band called Five Horse Johnson. Like I don't know who that is, but like it obviously rules. But then you also have your Mastodons and your fucking I obviously like the bigger Clutch is on there too, and the Impetus.
Which this was about the time that Clutch started kind of seeping into skate territory, and like Bam Margera was a huge influence in getting Clutch into the skateboarding world. But I mean, this was kind of one of their first dives into it, and I think they're very appropriate for this whole gaming genre. Like, very good music for that. And as we're talking about Thug 1 and Thug 2, I couldn't help but start looking up American Wasteland's soundtrack.
That's my second favorite game of all time. Yeah,
God, dude,
second best.
Every song was a cover of an old punk song, and they weren't just like good songs originally. The covers were actually fucking amazing. Like,
they were awesome.
There are some songs that I actually prefer the covers of. Like, My Chemical Romance did "Astro Zombies" by the Misfits, and I actually think that's better than the Misfits version. Don't shoot me, but like, I will go back and listen to that one. Actually, Census Fail, Institutionalized by the Suicidal Tendencies. I mean, Taking Back Sunday did Suburban Home, which is a Descendants song. Like, there was so much in there. And then I think the one theme of these Tony Hawk, like at least from Thug 1 to American Wasteland, is every single one had a Mike V and the Rat song, because this one's got Vendetta.
Yeah, dude.
Like, holy shit. I subconsciously kind of blocked that out. I didn't remember that he was on almost every one of those games. Like, that was fucking cool.
There's only so much to really dig into before we actually get into the interview today, but like it was more so that like all of these, there's so many games that had great soundtracks, like in general, that I think would be something that, by the way, guys, we have some news, not for this episode, but we're going to give you more content going forward later. Actually, we have plans in place to release more episodes monthly for you guys, and some stuff that's actually more just like adjacent to things.
Yeah,
I think I would love for a topic for one of the shows that I'm bringing to that, which we're actually going to announce later, would be best just video game soundtracks, like metal aside. Like,
yeah, just in general. Yeah.
When I was really trying to think about some of the best ones for this that had heavy music in it, that's why we're going to like the more punk and like it's Tony Hawk. But
yeah,
like Need for Speed Underground 2, that's like one of the best soundtracks in all of video gaming. One of my favorites that also had a whole bunch of rock and heavy metal in there was MX versus ATV. Like the motorcycles versus
Deep Cut. Damn.
Oh, dude, such a good soundtrack too. That had like all those motorcycle and dirt biking games too, like Jeremy something's motocross or whatever. Like that really, there was somebody that had like 5 video games. I can't remember people were screaming.
Travis Pastrana.
But what was the motocross?
I don't remember.
Jeremy McGrath.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeremy McGrath was like huge for a while, and I think he had a couple. Yeah, he was definitely like in all of those video games, and he was always like the cover athlete for all of those. I was actually did you know, like, you know about me, but like when I was a kid, like in 5th grade, people asked me like, what sport do you want to play? What do you want to grow up? I was like, dude, I want to be a professional dirt bike rider. I loved that shit. I got too tall for it and like too big for it, but like that's why like Jake, our guitar player in our band, he's always like loves dirt bikes and like riding dirt bikes. I'm like, dude, we got to go out and fucking rip some fucking berms one time, man.
That'd be fucking fun. I'd be down. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, I love motorcycles and dirt bikes. Like that was one of my favorite things. I never really had them too much growing up, but one of my friends had an ATV and we just go rip. Nothing more fun than ripping an ATV, man. Like,
and you could do it to the Thug 2 soundtrack. There you go. Just fucking blare that shit.
Like fucking flying.
I do have to just side note. Honorable mention. It's not rock or pop or even punk, but Del the funky Homo sapien. If You Must.
Oh yeah, If You Must.
That was one of those songs that was pivotal into getting me into the hip hop genre and all. Like,
dude, straight up.
Like that was. I remember like I memorized every word to that rap, and I would go around and sing it to people, and they'd just be like, "What the fuck are you on?" Like, because it's such a weird lyrics, you know. But,
yeah, it's true.
But yeah,
as I'm looking over this list of the American Wasteland soundtrack, I mean, I might have to fight myself here and think that it's actually might be better than the first one. All those covers are so fucking good, dude.
I think you're so right. Me, I like Thug 1. It's a solid soundtrack, but I think they really took off with Thug 2 in their diversity and how much they showed off. Because you got Frank Sinatra, you got the DOC, you got Johnny Cash, and then you got like Lamb of God. And it's like, what? Like, it was so out there that like it blew everyone's mind. And I think it really helped people kind of like broaden their horizons. But then by the time you get to American Wasteland with every cover they did, like, I thought that in itself was such a huge accomplishment that they could get all these bands to cover these songs and do it well. Like the bands did super well. And bands that we grew up with too, like Census Fail, Thursday, Thrice, Taking Back Sunday, fucking Hot Snakes, Dead Kennedys, Circle Jerks, Black Flag. Like there's just so much there to dig through. Whereas a lot of video game soundtracks don't give you that much. Tony Hawk really made sure to like dump content on you.
70 something songs per thing, and like you can make your own playlists.
Oh yeah,
I remember, and like they were really ahead of themselves, especially because you would have had to have coded it at that time to be able to do all these things, which not a lot of especially American companies were doing, because music has always been central to video games, period. And that's why when we did the older episode, which I highly recommend you guys listen to, because again, you might find some shit that like you would just want to jam to and you wouldn't have ever considered, is that like writing original music for a video game is tough. It's writing original theme and score for things, and then having some of the brightest minds in Japan, like they've always really cared about that. And so when I think about some of like the best soundtracks from the Super Nintendo, it's almost all Japanese games, or at least like Japanese developed companies that did these soundtracks and made these soundscapes. And so like to have an American company, even if it's making licensed music into the game or making like full on playlists and soundtracks that you could go back and do, that was such a pivotal thing for, like I said, I think the best thing to do is just expose people that usually wouldn't listen to metal to it, that never would have had a chance or any particular reason besides like passively on a movie, or like if they're in their car and someone won't change the channel.
Right.
Like back in that time too, like when we really just were fucking with iPods and CDs still, like this was pivotal. I mean, like how many fucking mixtapes do you think were made? Oh, like I burned so many mixtape CDs. I was basically just the Tony Hawk or soundtrack or whatever. Like this, I think they're like the most important thing, and then Rock Band, and then basically anything and everything else when it comes to licensing music. When it's specifically talking about bringing heavy or attitude, hip hop or punk, any of that. Yeah. Someone that's just like a white suburban guy in a neighborhood, right? Like his kids jamming fucking No Effects, Separation of Church and Skate, blasting out of their little Christian household. You know what I mean?
Like, for sure.
Like that wouldn't happen otherwise if it wasn't for video gaming and what skateboarding in general did for culture, especially around then. But
very pivotal, and it turned the tide, because then you see bands like one of my favorite games, Brutal Legend.
Yeah,
which came out, within that era, and it was just nonstop bangers. I think there was at least 50 to 70 songs in Brutal Legend, from Tenacious D, Megadeth, Black Sabbath, Rob Zombie, Def Leppard, and then they'd go harder with like Dimmu Borgir and softer with like Judas Priest. So there was like a huge, I guess, there was a huge way of like putting out these songs. And what I love is when you take a song that has nothing to do with the game and you make it have something to do with the game. Like I'll specifically remember this part of the game where you have to get in your sick ass car and you're like racing through the bad guys' place to get out. And the song they play is Through the Fire and the Flames. And it elevated the experience so much more, because now it's and you're like trying to go fast and you're like, fuck, like hitting things. Like it made it so much better. Like for me, I would go back and play that level so many times because I just enjoyed the experience of driving to that music. And I think it kind of harkens back to Tony Hawk, because the music makes the experience, but driving is something we associate with music. Skateboarding is something we associate with music. These are two things that completely kind of meld together into a musical experience, regardless of your skill level and regardless of how into it you really are. You could have just picked up a skateboard yesterday and I guarantee you're going to put on a soundtrack while you're skating because it helps. Or, you might be the worst driver in the world, but if you go on a road trip, everyone's got a road trip playlist. So I think those are parts of our culture, especially in America, where these games really honed that for people. And I would not be surprised if we started seeing more games that did that now in the future. Maybe not with skateboarding, maybe not with driving, but there are other things in the world that are very copacetic with music, very, it's a symbiotic relationship. So I'm just curious to see in the future where we kind of head with video game soundtracks with licensed music. Because
that's the toughest part, is getting the licenses for a lot of these and then having to spend the money. But that's honestly, that was my biggest gripe with to kind of wrap it up is like that the college football games for a long time were gone, and then we came back last year with college football 25. No licensed music, just like a bunch of like college band drumline, like the fucking college fight songs and stuff like that. But they didn't even have like the act. People were like, "Hey man, great game, good Madden simulator." The fuck's the music, dude? Like, where's
I want to hear good music while I play football.
And that's, I know. And it's kind of silly that like the Maddens always have in like the 2K, NBA, and like all these other ones have like such.
Yeah, I mean, even like WWE 2K25 has like a sick ass soundtrack. You know what I mean?
And like, so again, like basically sports games in general are like really where you look for these. But I guess one more thing that I wanted to shout out, because again, please, we're missing a lot of them, and maybe even if the ones we've already talked about. Comment them down below. Let us know if we're missing anything.
For sure, I'm very curious to know
which one of your soundtracks of these is your favorite. Do you like, again, or like which songs? But
and why is it Echo the Dolphin?
Why is it Echo the Dolphin for the
greatest soundtrack ever made? Fight me.
It's a soundscape, brother.
It is a soundscape. I love the underwater.
And I'll back you up.
As fuck, man.
I'll back you up.
Thank you.
I throw hands over Echo the Dolphin. I'll fuck him up. But Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal had like also had original soundtracking and stuff like that. Had like people like Primus and Buckethead make songs for it, and then also like that's where like Wolfmother was in it and like stuff like that. And,
God,
like,
dude, that's a deep cut right there.
Like all that kind of shit too.
I don't know. I'm surprised I didn't even think of that for this episode. Like Twisted Metal was pivotal in soundtracks, and again, that goes back to racing and cars and that whole feel of movement while you're listening to music, really making the difference. So I think my favorite was probably 3 or 4. Those soundtracks were probably the best for me, because one had Rob Zombie on it, and he was also a character, so it's just
Dracula.
Cool. Yeah, that was pretty rad. That was one of those games where like mom and dad were like, "What the fuck is this?" Like,
that's the game that made me think that song was originally about drag racing.
Oh, Dracula,
yeah, like NHRA drag racing off the line. Yeah, it's Twisted Metal and drag you out. And I was like, no, this is
Rob Zombie lives his life a quarter mile at a time.
Seems like maybe he's into. Who knows? He seems like interesting.
No, he just loves the monsters. That's pretty much it.
That's fair. Okay, yeah, because it was like a weird. Well, because also he had like the long drag strip race car.
Yeah.
Like, fuck it, who cares? But regardless, yeah, I think it'd be. And people again, not like you're screaming into this TV, like, what about fucking Doom or what about like? No, we already did this episode. We already did that one. So go back and listen to that
one. Yeah.
And then these were we just wanted to highlight it because obviously when we got the offer to talk to Cam Pipes, we're gonna get to it in a second here. We were like, oh man, dude, like I remembered it from Skate. You remembered it from Tony Hawk. We still listen to their music. They're still out there absolutely killing it, putting out new stuff. They're on the road. They're getting back out there. They're doing certain select dates. By the time you guys listen to this, there's not like a whole lot that they had to go on for touring, but that's because I think that they were on hiatus for a long time. And I won't want to cut the whole interview now, but when I heard that we were getting the offer, both of us went to the same headspace. Like, oh shit, yeah, Tony Hawk. And I'm like, there would be something that like, well, we didn't do any of those other time. Let's revisit them now and just have a good blah, blah, blah about some of our favorite Rack Band tracks. But yeah, please, again, enjoy our interview with Cam Pipes and 3 Inches of Blood. Let us know wherever you are. You can comment on Spotify now, even if you, again, just throwing something in there. It really helps us in the algorithm. And we are generally curious to know what you guys think and where it is. And before we get into it again, because we're going to run that interview and then stuff like that, you can always hang out with us on our Discord. You just search Metal Massacre pretty much anywhere on Google, and you'll find both the show, where to find it, where to listen to it. And then if you go onto discord.gg, just /Metal Massacre, that's your invite link. Same thing with our Patreon. You can't miss. And everything has a way or an option to support us for free by just clicking like or share or subscribe or any of that. That's absolutely free. Hell, hit subscribe and then turn off the notifications. I don't give a shit. I just want you to get us out there. And of course I care that we both care if you guys are listening to this and being like ambassadors for us and spreading it around. Because we're starting to get a little weight under our belt, which is good. The more shares we have, the more high profile interviews that those people will be like, well, he was on the show, so I should go on the show.
Exactly.
So,
when you have a long laundry list of people who have said yes, it's easier for someone else to say yes because, oh, Dragon Force did it, then I can do it. You know, it's funny. I was picking the wife up from work yesterday, and a little side story. This guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, you're the podcaster, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he's like, your wife forced me to listen to your podcast and I wasn't bored after 5 minutes. You're really good. I was like, thanks.
That's a very high compliment, actually. I'm sure he didn't want to listen to it.
Yeah, he's like, I did not want to hear this, but I actually really enjoyed it. And you have a nice voice. I was like, well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Like, I love getting those little like random people that'll say something, but you know, it means a lot because we've been doing this for a long time. I know, Dustin, you started podcasting like right before the pandemic.
Yeah, it was like,
and I've been doing this since 2016. So like to hear anybody have any praise or any criticism, really, it's I love it, and I openly welcome it. So comment down below on YouTube. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do I need to switch up the background of my studio? Should I stop wearing this Blizzard hoodie every day? I don't know. But I will not know until you tell me. So.
I mean, shit. Like I was doing the same thing. I was like, I'm starting to build little things around me and frame it in a little bit more because I used to do so much streaming here, but it wasn't a completely. I was looking.
Yeah, you're facing the other way. Yeah,
and so all I had was just like a big flag, and then it was just simple and straightforward. But now time is taking a toll, and now we're like, I drew this, by the way, everybody.
That's so funny you have that because mine's right here.
It is, yeah. I drew this on a something that came with my dryer's warranty papers when I was bored. So yeah, I have Carl on my desk. See, that's not bad. It's actually a pretty good Carl. Tell me it's fucking not.
That's
so this is a
Carl.
permanent. That's a permanent staple of the desk now, as long as it doesn't want us to stay. But we love you all.
We'll let you get to the interview now, and we'll leave you guys alone. Thank you guys for listening to another episode, and have fun with it. You are watching or listening to another edition of Metal Massacre, the only podcast that's not afraid to go there, but probably won't. I'm Lucian, the weirdo with a beardo. With me, as always, the czar of Nar, Dustin Peters. And we've got a very special guest for you guys today. This is one of those interviews that you almost never think is going to happen. And we are very lucky to have this happen. Cam Pipes from 3 Inches of Blood, everybody. Thank you for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, if you're listening, please clap. This is one of those moments.
Take your hands off the wheel. Put them back on quickly.
Please put them back on. Thank you for being here, man. This is kind of a dream come true for me and Dusty. I mean, all the way back to, I don't remember which one, but when Deadly Sitters made its debut on Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Okay.
I literally just kept trying to randomize the music and get back to it so I could hear it again and skate to it. Like that was one of the anthems of us kind of growing up and getting into metal. And before we even interview, I just want to say thank you so much for that song. Like it really means a lot to both of us.
Well, you're welcome. It's definitely a very special one for us too.
It's got that feeling where you're just riding into battle. And I think that whole album does. It's riding off into a battle between humans and orcs, and you're riding your horse into the sun, and it's just got that glorious feeling to it that honestly I feel like a lot of bands try to replicate, but it doesn't really ever. To me, it rarely ever happens in that way. So it's one of those perfect fusions of, I want to say Viking metal, but it's not. But it's like power metal, but it's not. It's so many things all at once. I think it's just such a rarity. I was looking at some of your influences here that are listed, and like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Twisted Sister, obviously the Lead, Deep Purple. Were there any ones we don't know about that kind of played an integral role into the I guess that first album?
We were listening to so much stuff around that time. It was really a time of discovery for us. We were all still pretty young. A lot of us were like in our early 20s when we were writing that record. A lot of Thin Lizzy, for sure. Just discovering obscure new wave of British heavy metal bands that we weren't too familiar with. You know, this was a time when, you know, downloading was a thing, but the internet and social media was still pretty new. And I don't know, you guys remember there was a site called mp3.com that was around for a little while. And that was a really good outlet for us to kind of put up like a demo here and like get plays. I don't know why that site ever like kind of disappeared, but it helped us kind of find out who our peers were as well, like other bands that were kind of a similar ilk to us that were just kind of fledgling like we were at the time. But really, it was like we were just kind of soaking in everything we could. Running Wild was another big one for us, and I think that really shows in Advance and Vanquish. I remember we had some first time we were in Germany. A fan came up to me and said the song "Lord of the Storm." That's probably the best song that Running Wild never wrote. So that made me really happy because still obviously such a big Running Wild fan myself. And so to get that comparison from someone from where Running Wild is from was great to hear.
That's gotta feel really good.
That's big talk right there. That would be like top 10 for me if as just anyone in a band. But 3 Inches of Blood is one of those bands that you guys are so in your pocket. Like who you are, your sound. It's fun to listen to and kind of hear those influences seep in, but it never. To me, at least, it never strikes me as being like, oh, well, they're trying to sound like this. You guys ride that line between influence and doing what you want yourself. And I think it really, really shows true, especially in your latter albums, like when you started kind of getting into other feels, when you guys disbanded in 2015, did you ever think you were going to come back, or was this something that happened on a spur, I guess?
It had kind of been the idea of taking a break, at least, had been floated around for a few years. And then before we decided we were going to call it a day, we actually were in the midst of like about a year-long break, just figuring out what we wanted to do musically and what we wanted to do with our personal lives as well. And by the time a year was up, the consensus was, personally, we've all kind of gone in directions like with careers and education and stuff, that pursuits that we followed in that time, and it sort of decided we still didn't feel like we're in a place to like get shit.
Is that a cat attack?
That's awesome. I'm sorry,
right.
That's awesome.
We got some good
oh no, we got a clip. No, that's awesome.
All right.
I'm locking mine upstairs. Don't worry about that.
For a sec, one of my dogs was going to jump up on the chair too.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Oh no, that's awesome.
Okay, Kitty. All right. She screwed everything up.
Oh, that's okay. Well, while you do that, man, like absolutely.
Here, come here. Keep you out of trouble.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Little cameo.
The reason to use the YouTube to see these things, because that's an adorable cat.
Okay, you're gonna get down.
Right, you got your time.
Okay, yeah. So we got back together, like reconvened, and just decided we weren't gonna keep going, I guess, and just kind of go our separate ways. Stay friends, obviously, we have in that time. So, and I think that helped to when we finally just decided to start doing it again. But in those 8 years, I had hoped that at some point we would start doing it again, but wasn't necessarily getting the vibe that from anybody. We hadn't talked about it, I mean, and nobody really breached the question until Justin called me one day a few years ago and said he was feeling inspired again, and if how I would feel about doing the band again. And I said, yeah, I'm open to it. Let's talk. And after much discussion with him and I, and then talking to all the other guys, we were all pretty much on the same page in how we wanted to approach it if we did it again. So started jamming, and after a few rehearsals over a period of a few months of getting together, we felt like, okay, yeah, this feels good. There's some chemistry that's still there. We pretty much remember most of the songs without really sitting down and working at it too much, and nice. So that muscle memory is still there. And
after 8 years, that's impressive.
Yeah, so like the songs are kind of there, and it took me a little while to remember certain lyrics. I had to have cheat sheets for the first couple of jams on certain songs because we were just getting in a room without really planning out what we're going to play. It was more or less just go in the room, set up our gear, and say, okay, let's play this song. Let's say, all right, see how it goes. So after a few times doing that, it's like, all right, I think we got this. And then we said start working on planning some shows. So it was a process of from when Justin first called me to actually playing our first shows in our hometown here in Vancouver, that say probably about a year and a half, something like that. So with a lot of meticulous planning just went into it, because we didn't want it to be just us jumping on the stage again, doing the same old thing. We wanted to take it to the next level, make it an extra special show.
That's awesome.
Sound and lights and all that. And we just wanted to step the production up.
That's kind of what I wanted to ask you, is like that you had touched on it, and you also sort of answered it by saying that, you've done a lot of planning and meticulous stuff, but you said earlier that you guys have a very defined sound that we love. And when you mentioned that you guys had gotten together, you had said that it was going to be done the way that we feel like we should be done now, and maybe like wanted to do. Has anything changed then, I suppose, or is it just more production? Because like you said, you gotta come back at it fully formed, make a good strategy, and then come at it like a war general, sitting down and making sure all of your pieces are in play. Now let's go execute.
Yeah.
What's changed?
In that respect, I think we have more of a handle on what we want to do from the business side of things as well. We're managing, and in North America, we're booking ourselves. We've got the experience in being in this for so long, and seeing the business side of things firsthand. And also, Nick, our bass player, he left the band in 2009. And in that time, he's worked in like music and theater production. He's worked for like backline companies. So he's got an enormous amount of experience, like being on both sides of being the band guy and settling up with promoters, and working for the venue and being the other side of it. So he's got a lot of experience doing that. So he kind of stepped up and said, well, I can handle getting us shows, and I know when we go play, I can settle up with the venue and that kind of thing. So it's nice having that all that handle of that stuff in house.
Yeah.
And because we're only doing select shows, we can kind of make it extra special, and nice. Go to the places that we know we did well in the past, and then just kind of spread it out based on the time that we can do this outside of work. Because nowadays all of us have pretty steady career jobs, but they're also very flexible as well. So we can take some time off here and there, and we don't have to worry about the band being the main source of us just paying our bills. And so we don't have to be on the road for 6 weeks at a time. We can go out for like a weekend every couple months. And
that's so nice.
And just like play some awesome shows, put our all into it, and then come home and then just go back to working the job. And it's a nice little balance there.
That's really nice. I mean, the goal for everyone wants to pay all their bills making music for the rest of their life. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But having that reassurance when you come home, like I'm having this discussion with my wife right now, where I'm trying to find that mid balance between like doing those things I love, but then coming home and having that security and that safety. So the fact that you got to go away and have more time to focus on those things and then come back even stronger, like I'm sure that was really nice to have that ability. But also, like, to kind of double back with what we were saying, like so many times I see bands handle their own stuff that way, like booking and management and even merch and stuff, and it can be so daunting because at the end of the day you just want to perform. I gotta think that having him have that expertise just made that run so much smoother now than you probably assumed it was going to, right?
Oh, 100%. Like we just lucked out that Nick was able to have that wealth of knowledge at his disposal, and because he'd sort of done like handle a little bit of settling up with promoters when we tour and that kind of thing before, but then he just gained so much more knowledge and insight into that side of things, to where he could just call up Live Nation and be like in our hometown here and be like, hey, we're thinking of do some reunion shows. And, cause we were going to get a local promoter to handle it. And then we just said, we'll just call the venue. We'll call Live Nation and just be like, hey, let's just do this directly with you.
Yeah.
And he was comfortable doing that. And we, and it's really, okay, this is good. We don't have to, get some guy who's, we don't have a manager who we have to like as a go-between, like we are the manager. And I think for now, anyway, that's totally fine. We're going to Europe later this year, and we have a friend who's helping us as booking agent over there, because that's a whole other realm. So, here and there, we are going to need help as we kind of branch out and move into other territories and places that we want to go outside of our real comfort zone here, places that we feel like we want to like reestablish ourselves. So we got ourselves a European agent, and I'm sure we're going to need help in other areas too. But for the most part, everything is going through us and initially, and then we're just reaching out to people that we know that have similarly gained that knowledge in the biz and are also in bands, but also have their own thing working within the business side of it as well.
And I mean, it just goes to show, like, I mean, it's not said for no reason. Never burn a bridge if you can help it. Never burn a bridge, because you never know. Jimmy down the street might have gotten 8 years of roadie experience and now can really help you out, and we'll do it for cheap. Like, you just never know who people are going to be or what people are going to make themselves into. And I think it's cool that you guys have like stuck around with those people and like got to see them grow. And now it's like, okay, well, what can I do to help out? Having that kind of grassroots, homegrown feel to it just makes it even more special, because you guys could have come back and done it all through someone else. And then it's not so much yours. You have so much more pride and ownership in something when you get to handle the bottom line. So hats off to you guys for keeping it that way, because I think especially nowadays, more bands need to learn how to do this stuff on their own, because you might get in league with someone that you regret later, or you have a manager that we don't need that. And things change, but having those skill sets as a band is something that is beyond beneficial, in my opinion.
Exactly. I would encourage any band who's starting to make a go of it and going out on tour, I was like, just soak up as much as you can, like shadow people that you're working with. Like, you can learn a lot from just kind of being nearby someone and just picking up little things here and there and just observing.
Yeah.
Treat even if someone rubs you the wrong way, unless they're really like actively trying to like fuck you over, like just kind of be civil. And you never know, some people may be going through a rough time in their lives, and you may kind of bear the brunt of some of that by accident, and it's not necessarily personal. So I think over the years we've developed good relationships with people, because we generally have always tried to come across as being professional and courteous, regardless of who we're dealing with, because ultimately, like, on show day, everyone there is essentially working towards the same goal of having a good show, making money for the club and for the bar, whatever, and making yourself some money so you can keep going and paying gas and get yourself to the next show. So things really come around. You run into people years later that you haven't seen, and if you leave an impression on them, then they'll remember you, and they'll want to help you and do you a solid. So like that really helps, but do it genuinely. Obviously, like, don't be fake about it.
Yeah, right.
I think we generally are really nice people, and I don't think we've burned any bridges over the years. So
you're like, I'll find out if I did. I don't remember though.
Yeah, exactly.
None I've heard of. So
yeah,
we're I myself take pride that I don't suffer from lead singer's disease. I actually help load gear. I always have. I've always been in bands.
A saint of a man.
Way back that. if you didn't help load gear, then you gave them shit. Like you roasted them or whatever. You say, come on, man, you missed loadout, like, and that sort of thing. And so you let people know, like you didn't do your part, you didn't pull your weight. So, and it, just help out. It just makes things go smoother. Sometimes you're in a hurry. We gotta get going. We've got a long drive tonight. So, I'm not that guy, that singer who doesn't help out. Nah. I'll do what I can.
You seem like a down to earth guy, and like again, as a dumbass who still legs an 810 Ampeg up a staircase. I mean, shit, dude. I appreciate you, bro.
Oh yeah. I've definitely been that guy on either end of that Ampeg. Like,
oh yeah.
I don't know what the fuck they do, and that's why I owned an 810, so I know what it's like.
Yeah, man. To say it's hiding under the desk. Right.
And that's especially when you appreciate local crew who are there to help you unload your gear. And
yes,
if they're willing to like grab that 810 for you, that's great. Then
it's a nice
throw them a t-shirt, if they like your band, then
right. And I don't know about, like, that always means the world, just those little things, because that might, you might give someone a t-shirt, they have no idea who the hell you are, but now they have that sick ass t-shirt and they have a reason to check you out. So it's one hand feeds the other, and I think that's totally something I see in our local scene as well. But so I got to know, what's next? You guys are doing the European tour, getting your name back out there, reestablishing those connections.
Some American dates too, even.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any inklings or any itches for more material?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. We've started to demo some stuff. Have it like Justin and Shane have got the basis of a new song with some really killer riffs. Haven't all gotten in a room together to like work on it together, but there's some foundational stuff happening as far as new songs go. So something we've been talking about for a little while is actually Justin, when he first called me and said he'd been working on some songs that for another project he had, but he felt like some of the stuff he was writing would be more something that 3 Inches would be suited for. And he had songs that we never used before we split up. So he's got those as well, but he had some newer stuff that he said, hey, I got this stuff would work for 3 Inches. How do you feel about getting back together and getting the band back together and then playing some shows and then eventually write? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. Like,
oh, that's awesome. So I can't wait, man. Just tell me that sweet falsetto ain't going nowhere.
No, I mean, I'm still doing it.
God, yeah. Like nothing to me, honestly, sorry, Dustin, nothing to me encapsulates that power metal feel quite like that voice. Like you got golden pipes, my friend. Take care of them.
Thank you.
I was going down the same route. I quit
smoking years ago, and I think that helps.
Yeah.
I mean, I smoked while I was singing and that kind of thing. So, I mean, that was more just a health decision, but yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Nice. Absolutely. All I was going to say as well is really that it's like, if you're telling me that we've got some older songs in the can that you're going to bring to this newer day and age, you guys, besides the iconic voice, I as a strings guy and like more of a rhythm dude, you already said it, like you got some sick riffs and ideas that are already put out there. That's the most exciting thing to me as well. If it's you guys have always, your riffs stick in people's heads. Like they're not, it's something that's very, you guys have an iconic sound, if I can give it the most plainly. It is something that when you hear it and you know it. And so to hear that we're getting a little bit more of maybe the same in the best sort of way, while you're still, I mean, shit, years removed, time and wiser in between. Hopefully, like again, it'll nothing but success for you guys about writing the newest stuff that you have coming up in the pipeline, whatever's going on next for you. And but it's great to hear that you have things that you're already ahead of, I should say. So
yeah, I think some of the stuff we've got is, there's some variety there. I think like our music has sort of always been kind of varies in mood and tempo, and based on some of the riffs that these guys are showing me, that will continue, and hopefully nothing sounds repetitive. I mean, so far I don't think it is, but
No,
we've got guys who bring so many different types of influences to the table that I think the spirit of 3 Inches and what our music what kind of feelings evoke in people will be there, and I think the songs you'll recognize it as us, and I think it will fit with the rest of our catalog.
That's exciting, man.
Based on what I'm hearing these guys bringing already. So.
That's really exciting.
It's like you guys had all these influences to start when you're in your 20s, and now we're years later, we're back at it again. And it's like I can only imagine all of the new influences that have taken over you guys in that last 10 years. I'm excited to see what evolves and what stays the same and what changes and where you guys end up on this new album. I think is going to be a really cool indicator of the time that 3 Inches spent apart and how it has, evolved everyone as a musician. Like that's going to be the coolest thing for me. So I'm really excited for that.
Me too. I've got a lot of ideas, vocally and lyrically. So, I jot down stuff even in that 8-year break. Was just keeping little notes on here and there, thinking it would be for a different project. But then, that because of the pandemic, something I had sort of going on kind of had to fall by the wayside because, no one was supposed to get together and
right
a little jam space and play music together. So, now we'll see that I'll just transport these to 3 Inches if it works. But I've got lots of thematic ideas floating around that we'll see which fits best.
Oh, thematic. That makes me even more excited, man. This is going to be awesome. I guilty pleasure, love putting your music on while I game. It's just got that.
You're not the only one.
Carrying the banner feel. Yeah. So I'm excited to see what I can add to that collection just for my personal self. I did want to bring something up because I didn't know this, and we are huge Metalocalypse fans here on Metal Massacre. We actually do the world's only Metalocalypse podcast called Deathcast. Right?
Cool.
Big nerds. But I didn't know you did a voice in Metalocalypse.
I did. Yeah.
You did the kid with Toki's self-help book. He's like, we all have bullies. My stepdad eats my food and all. Was that you?
Well, I think in the credits I'm listed as fan with Tell All Book, but that's not really accurate. I'm doing the voices at the end of the Book Clock episode. And I'm just random voices in the crowd going, "Turn out your guitar, shithead," and you're blowing it. And so that's I'm not sure how that the Tell All Book part came in, because no, I'm just random crowd voices at the end.
That's awesome.
And but it's funny, like seeing my name in the credits there next to like, George Corpse Grinder Fisher and Mark Hamill and Malcolm McDowell, and it's like, holy shit, these names, like
you.
yeah, exactly. So it's cool seeing that, and it was cool to get a little credit in there, and another Metalocalypse connection. The last tour we did in 2013, we had a fill-in bass player, and his name is Pete Griffin, and he plays bass live for Death Clock.
Oh, crazy!
Yeah, he's the live bass player. You probably don't see him because I guess they have the silhouetted on stage thing. But yeah, Pete Griffin, he filled in for us for a tour.
I saw him once in Kansas City play with Death Clock, and then the time before that I saw them play, it was Brian. He did like a couple shows on that tour, but I knew they sometimes rotated people. I just, I always like curious because I'm a super fan. I'm like, who's on the stage? But that's really cool, man. I mean, how did that even happen? Was it just kind of like you got a call one day and Brendan was like, I like your band, come on? Or was it like mutual friends, I guess?
Yeah, it was more that. Our old bass player, Byron Stroud, he tour managed one of the first Metalocalypse tours.
Oh
wow! When they weren't even the headlining band, it was them trying to see like, okay, let's see if we can port this to a live setting.
Yeah,
and he was their tour manager. So he one day was like talking to Brendan and was just like, kind of threw my name out there, like. I was like, oh yeah, you should get Cam to do a voiceover. So And he was a fan of the band, so he called me up and said, like, yeah, do you want to do a voice on the show? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So he just sent me a script. Brian Posehn, the comedian, wrote the episode, and we're friends with Brian and had been for years. So it was really cool that he wrote that episode. So I'm just the other day in LA, actually. So it was nice to see him. I haven't seen him in quite a while. It's just a few random lines at the end of the episode. So I called him up and went to a buddy's studio, and he was literally driving his car at the time. He's like, okay, here, I'm just going to pull over. And so he could give me direction over the phone and just had me do the lines. He said, okay, now do them. He just had him do them in different sort of ways. Yeah. And it was really quick, just like kind of, half hour of just going into the studio and just yelling a few lines into the microphone.
That's really cool.
And then on the next tour, we were in LA, and he came out, and I was like, hey, did my lines make it? Did I make the cut? And he's like, yeah, you'll be in the show. So it was nice that I actually made the episode.
That's awesome. And you're watching the episode the whole time, like, when am I going to pop up? It's right at the end. That's cool. That's so fun, man. I mean, what a small world. Like, totally. Yeah. But well, we know you're kind of at the end of your time, Cam. We do appreciate you, man. This is a fun talk just to kind of like get your view on things and where you guys are at and what the plan is with 3 Inches. Because when I saw this, when I started seeing more stuff about you guys online, I went, okay, what's actually going on? And I'm happy to see that you guys are really taking full advantage of this momentum. Like, and I hope all the best for 3 Inches of Blood. If you ever want to come by Omaha, Nebraska, I know you guys would sell the hell out. Like, sell that place out for sure. So don't be afraid to come to the Midwest. I know a lot of bands are, there's not much there, but trust me, there's a huge metal scene here that would love you guys.
We'll bring the whole crowd. We'll pack it out for you.
Well, there's definitely other places in the States that we want to get to. So we'll just see what happens for the rest of the year.
For sure.
Schedule permitting, that kind of thing.
Oh, I get you.
We'll see what happens.
Well, best of luck to you guys. You have been watching and listening to Metal Massacre. Get out there and keep it metal.